As women, we are just beginning to embrace the confidence, strength, and courage to unapologetically reach our individual and collective potential in many still very male-dominated environments. Having access and the space to be empowered for what we offer is key to enhancing many professional fields. We not only want equal pay, we want to write songs, produce, play the drums, electric guitar, and be the sound engineer. Women are missing in the music industry. 21.7% are artists, 12.3% are songwriters, and only 2.1% are producers. That's beginning to change with the organization we are featuring today. Welcome to Small and Gutsy, a podcast featuring interviews with nonprofit and social impact organizations under $10 million. My name is Laura Witkoff, and I'm excited and proud to be your host. My hope is that you love the stories as much as we do, and perhaps you will find needed services, a job, volunteer, or donate. Feel free to pass along any valuable information you hear today to others, and remember to send me the name of any organization you'd like featured at reachus@theintrinsicgroup.com. Founded in 2016, Girls Are Loud creates a positive space for female artists to collaborate, network, make lasting friendships, and great music together. Located in Los Angeles, a musical capital, but one that is very male-dominated, Girls Are Loud is changing all that. Their mission is to support female instrumentalists, engineers, producers, and videographers. Building an organization for women to feel welcome, to express their artistry, their brilliance, and be appreciated cultivates authentic beauty that registers very audibly. I'm super excited to introduce my guest today, Leila Kumble, founder of Girls Are Loud. You, Leila, are a rock star in my book. You are the only nonprofit of this type around that I know of. You support any artist, and the beautiful catch is that the support team for that artist is all female. So let's get started. Welcome, Leila. Share your passion about Girls Are Loud, your deep connection and commitment, and what led to your starting this.
Well, I'll start with what led to Girls Are Loud, because let's start at the beginning. I started Girls Are Loud because I was working with composers, and I noticed that there were not a lot of female composers in the field that I was aware of. They weren't at the forefront, and there seemed to be a real gap. And I met this composer whose wife helped him score a film. And then for the follow-up film, he got chosen to do the next film, and she didn't. And that's sort of when I realized that there's this gap that exists where women aren't being given the same opportunities. I don't know still if it's for lack of trying or if it's on the other side, or if those opportunities are there, but they're given to somebody else. So we are working towards changing that. And I had an idea in college when I was younger about doing a Wrecking Crew style recording studio.
Wrecking Crew style production gets its name from the Los Angeles production team behind some of the most iconic music of the 60s and 70s. The idea is to have a collective of musicians, a house band of sorts, familiar with each other's strengths and who are ready to collaborate with whomever comes into the studio.
I decided, well, why not just marry the two ideas and have the Wrecking Crew style recording be all female, and in that way really combat that issue. In doing that, I've learned that there's a lot of women in music that are in the classical field and want to cross over into contemporary music and can't find that pathway. And this is a really great way for them to do that. It's also a way for them to meet one another, empower one another, create a community around what we're doing. They're all aspiring musicians and are just looking to find a way to find more opportunities to do what they do. So that's sort of the beginnings of Girls Are Loud, where it was really that one moment with that composer and realizing how unfair that was and wanting to change that.
It's so interesting because coming from more of a classical music environment and not having those opportunities, you saw that link between women wanting to be able to cross over and not having the access points to be able to do that.
Right. The more women that I talked to that were composers, a lot of them sort of told me, like, you know, I'd love to be on a rock album someday, but it's just not going to happen. And so I I'm doing this classical thing. I'm in the symphony. I'm scoring film. And then even within that space, it was hard for them to break through. It's sort of saying like, no, you don't need to adjust what your dreams are because of the situation and still be disappointed. That's not right. And how can we make the actual dream happen? And looking ahead, like we are hoping to eventually go into helping them become better at being a composer, being in the symphony, if that's what they want to do as well.
Right. One doesn't preclude the other. You can do both. And so many people have in the male world, and why can't we bring that to the female world too?
Exactly.
I was in kind of researching Girls Are Loud and learning a little bit. I was really surprised by those statistics, I have to tell you. I really didn't realize how low they were. And I'm wondering if, have people said I'm really surprised by that? I didn't know.
Unfortunately, no. A lot of people are aware that there's this big gap. To be fair, I do talk to a lot of people in the music industry itself. So there is a lot of awareness, but there's very little being done to change it. USC Annenberg did this report that created a lot of buzz in the industry that released all those statistics. There is definitely work to be done in terms of diversity and inclusion. It's just trying to figure out how to do that while continuing to have the success that the music industry is having. And I think people do worry that if they change tacks or change their approach, they might lose things that are working right now. There are definitely great groups that are working to change that. But there is awareness about these statistics, and like you're saying, it shows that there's a big need for a change. And I do find there's a lot of crossover statistics that are interesting, like the number of women in classical music as violinists isn't a crazy low number. I think it's something like 49% of violinists in the symphonies are women. But then you look at rock music and the number goes down to like 7% or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but the numbers, they're just like quite disparate as you change from classical to contemporary.
So it's not the concept of music or the sensibility or the talent. It's actually the pigeonholing of females in a more traditional classic sense, and the not recognizing that the same talent can be in contemporary music.
Right. Yes, exactly. I think it's a lot of women saying, I think the classical way means that I have more access. And so they'll go that direction because it's safer and it's working. I can't really trace back when this happened of the classical realm being really accepting of women in music and the contemporary not so much. And that being said, still that composer situation happened of if there is a choice between a man and a woman, it's often not as fair as you'd expect.
Does that sometimes depend upon who is the director or the person who's going to determine whether the composer or the team is mostly male or female?
In my experience, it's more of a chicken and the egg situation where the director chooses the person who's more experienced, and the person who's more experienced is usually male because of the opportunities they've been given before. I think it's a bad feedback cycle, and I don't think anyone's at fault for it. I just think it's a long time of the same situation.
It is what it is, and therefore now it needs to change because of how it is. Yeah, I hear that. So walk us through how an artist might contact you and what the expectation would be. Let's start there, and then I'll move into the other questions.
Either an artist will contact us because they've heard about us on Instagram, or they have a friend who's worked with us, or they found out about us somehow. Or alternatively, we do a lot of A&R. So we are searching for artists all the time and looking for up-and-coming musicians that we might be able to help and work with, or think that we would be the right vibe for them. In both situations, we wait for the artist to give us a demo of a song. It can be a voice memo, it can just be the lyrics, and we will talk with them through what instrumentation they'd like, what they want the song to sound like, references, things like that. Then we'll send them these instrumentalist reels. They'll get a sense of what these people sound like, if they think they'll vibe with them. And once everything's confirmed, the instrumentalists have a couple weeks to sit with the song, either learn their part if the artist has already written it out, or write their own part. After those 2 weeks, we're in the studio together for 4 hours. And the first 2 hours is rehearsal, getting to know each other, playing the song a few times, seeing what works. And 2 hours is recording the song. And it usually ends up being the perfect amount of time. It always seems really short to people, the 4 hours, but we can usually get that song out by then. And it is always amazing to me that, everyone's worked individually and in their rooms on this beforehand. And then they come in and it usually all is already well gelled together. Yeah, so that's one way we work. We also work with artists that have the song released and they just want an acoustic version of it. And so that process is pretty much the same, except the instrumentalist would just be learning a pre-written part.
So interesting because it doesn't matter, it sounds like, if the artist is male or female. What's beautiful is the pre-work that's being done and the coming together, and somehow those 4 hours become a unification, become the impact or the outcome of what everybody's put into it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it is pretty exciting to see how committed everyone gets to that pre-work. They all just really want the best for the artist, and some of them will send through voice memos over those 2 weeks of rehearsal. Please ask the artist if this is in the right direction, if this is right. We just want to make this the best possible. And so there is a lot of collaboration and a lot of sense of community through the whole process. And you do make a good point. We don't have any issues with working with a male artist or a female artist. There just felt like there was no reason to limit it. At the end of the day, we just want as many women in the room as possible. And if we limit the pool even more, we're once again limiting people's chances.
How would you define your core business outside of the artistry the artists that you support? Can you share a little bit more about that?
We put together all female teams for artists to record singles, and we shoot music videos as well. And our core business is empowering women in music, primarily producers, engineers, and instrumentalists.
Say more about the videography.
When we record our songs, we have a videographer present so that we can get a music video of the experience. So the artist will leave with a master and a music video.
I love that. I actually think on your website, there's a lovely video of that.
Yes, we do have a music video page, and then our About Us page has a compilation of a few.
I thought it was great and really well done. And for me, it was so beautiful to see a violinist, to see someone on a keyboard, to see a guitarist. I mean, you kind of get the whole gamut. It's really remarkable.
We also make sure that through sessions, we don't always have the same musicians in every single session. So we do try to switch it up, and there's always different people in different music videos and different sessions.
I love that because you give everybody an opportunity to participate. So it's really building that collaboration.
Definitely, yeah. We want to make sure that we have a big Rolodex of people and are constantly shuffling throughout them.
Share with me maybe one or two projects that you're most proud of.
Sure. The first one that I would say, which is the most recent, is we did a session in lockdown. And that was pretty crazy because I had never recorded over Zoom. We sort of went into it really trying to hone in on the logistics of this. Technical things, how would it work sound-wise, really getting into the nitty-gritty. It turns out it was very similar to what real life would be like, which is really crazy. And it almost felt more special and close. And again, that sense of community really came through, which I think made me so proud because we really needed it. And it was just so exciting that you can feel that way while in your room and in lockdown. And yeah, everyone was so happy to be part of it because they hadn't been with other people or hadn't been working on music at that point.
What a gift you gave them in some way to carry on and do this knowing, or at least initially feeling, this is going to be so different and so hard. And I know everyone talks about Zoom fatigue. I've certainly listened to concerts that have been put together by people individually. A lot of people have on the internet, and I've found them to be utterly beautiful, not only because they're just beautiful, they sound great, but because I know what it takes, having taught online, now doing a podcast with Zoom as a framework to connect, is how much it takes to connect. And with music, you have to get it just so, right? So to be able to build that community when people feel so isolated is really touching.
Yes, exactly. And I think it was so clear how much it meant to people, and that really had a big impact on me, and I didn't take it lightly. We were able to record an entire song. We siloed out all the instruments, so the artist would just be with the violinist and then just be with the cellist. And once we like really honed in on a sound, we'd send that off to our engineer. The crazy part is it worked, right? Like it worked for them to have not really heard each other that well, have the static of Zoom, and it still came across. And that song ended up being on New Music Friday on Spotify.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. It did the best of any of our songs. And I think that was so rewarding. So I'd say that's definitely one that stands out.
I think that's the silver lining of COVID. If there can be a silver lining, it's being able to continue to do the good work.
Yeah, and I really do think the way that it feels connecting with people in this pandemic is, I'm so much more grateful for those moments. The other one that comes to mind, which I guess is kind of funny because it was a fundraising event. We threw a show at the Women's Club of Hollywood. It was really well attended, better than we expected. We had never thrown a show with just us as the promoter, and we had a full female bill, artists that I admire and handpicked, and to see the number of people that showed up, that were excited about it, that really responded to the idea of having a full female bill. We ended up recording a session with one of the artists that played on that show, Bailey Barrett, and it led to a lot of relationships that I still have through GAL. That was a really special event. It was special to see all the people that are fans of what we do come together in that way. You know, working in this nonprofit, I don't have really a team. I have a lawyer, an accountant, and a rotating list of interns sometimes. And so to see people supporting what we do, it was very humbling. And yeah, I got a very nice letter after that saying that it meant a lot to this person. And that was a really exciting experience. And it made me realize that like the impact of what we're doing, seeing it play out. Yeah, so I would say that was another memorable moment.
Huge. And it's, I hate to use this kind of cliche, but if you build it, they will come, and you are building it, right? I hate to be too cliche, but I couldn't resist it. Share the significance, because I think you've already touched on some of this, of an all-female team for any artist.
I think the significance is different for different people. I worked with a artist. She, had 2 tours, had done 2 major albums, and she'd never worked with other women in the room, in the studio. And so to her, it meant I don't need to be self-conscious anymore. She felt like she had to prove herself in a lot of rooms because people would look at her and say, are you the assistant, or are you someone's girlfriend? And so she often felt like she had to prove that she was talented enough to be there. And she said that was really liberating to her. To some people, it's the feeling comfortable enough to speak up. To the women who are behind the scenes and not the artists, it's been seeing people that are like them and doing what they do and want to do, and having that unity between each other. I think that means a lot to some people in terms of not feeling so alone. For me, I would say the best part about it is watching them be able to build each other up. I think there aren't that many women in music that get these opportunities. And so when they do, there is a real sense of paying it forward and continuing to work with one another. And so for me, seeing an artist and a violinist really hit it off and then decide that outside of Girls Are Loud, they're going to go tour together, that is the coolest, right? And that, I think, showing how they can support each other and empower one another, that's been exciting to see. And I think that happens in a room full of women together because of the shared uphill battle.
Shared uphill battle, shared interest in making good music together, and the safety part that you talked about, the feeling supported, feeling like I don't have to explain why I as a female play this instrument or want to produce this. I think you've created an amazing space for a strong aspect of a woman's identity who's in that field to completely own it in an individual way and a collective way. Two women want to go on the road together, playing different instruments, or one is a lead vocalist and the other one's doing something else. And I think what's great about that is just that interdependent mentorship that occurs, where one may be a little bit more seasoned, or maybe they're both starting out and end up really connecting and feel like they can make something out of this. And you've really given them the platform or the seeds to be able to really sprout.
One of the goals of Girls Are Loud is to not be part of that picture anymore. Once we finish the single or we finish recording, we want that for people. We want people to go ahead and work with each other again and not need us. That's us doing a good job.
Your goal is to plant that seed and have that experience, so then women can feel empowered to go on and do that in other spaces.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I love that. And I think you're going to change the music industry.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
It feels like you're on the road to do that. You've already witnessed experiences like that. I commend you for taking this on. It's a challenge, and you're breaking down a glass ceiling, frankly.
Thank you very much. I'm humbled to hear that.
Tell me why the name, I love it, but I'm just going to ask, why the name Girls Are Loud?
If only I knew. There's a band called Girls Aloud, and I think this all started as a joke with my dad. Yeah, where he was talking about Girls Aloud, and it kind of came from there, but I'm pretty sure the logo came first. So I drew the logo in like a notebook in college. Somehow the name came from that pun with the band name.
Have you always been musical? Have you always been interested in music? Have you always been drawn to this field?
Yes. So I did ballet when I was younger, and I played piano, and I went on to play guitar. And so I still play guitar, still do dance, and I've always been really drawn to music since I was very young. I think this is a funny story. My mom was trying to teach me nursery rhymes when I was 4, and I wouldn't learn them. I couldn't memorize them, but I did memorize all the words to Cher's songs. So, so I think there's always been an aspect of me that has been very musical.
Musical and resistant in a good way.
Right.
I love it.
Stubborn. And then when I got older, I realized, or I didn't think I had the chops or the confidence to be on stage. And so I wanted to be on the business side and do A&R. And I interned in that, and I studied music industry in college. And yeah, it's always been music. I definitely went through career phases because of the fear of the instability of a music career, but it's always been my goal.
And it sounds like that gave you the drive and determination to create a platform for others. It takes a degree of self-confidence to say, I'm going to start this. I'm going to try it. I know there's a need out there. I love music. I don't want to be out front, but I want to help people behind the scenes to give them their out frontness. And that's really what you've created.
Thank you. Yeah, I think in part that also came from my parents. They are extremely good at what they do and work really hard at it. And they've always said to work with an eye to how you're changing something about the world. And doing a good thing is more important than status, what career trajectory you choose or lane. And that stuck with me in a big way.
Kudos to your parents, kudos to you for internalizing that message and then creating it your own, because that's what you've done with Girls Are Loud. It's so clear to me. As always with our podcast, we do a quick round of gutsy questions.
Oh no.
You're okay. They're not scary, I promise. They're actually a lot of fun. People seem to really like them. So the first one is, if money or funding, which is always an issue for nonprofits and social impact organizations, can't be the answer, what's at the top of your wish list for Girls Are Loud?
I would say partnerships with does that count? I don't know if that would count.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Yeah, partnerships with record labels and management companies, doing the A&R aspect of it or having it being done for us, I think would mean that we could really focus on just getting women in the rooms, building our roster. So I would say that, and also because of the marketing they can bring and the awareness that they can bring to our cause.
I agree. And I understand why you asked the question, because it's kind of like funding, but in a way, you're building a partnership where you're an equal partner in that construct. So the wish list is partner with us, you do your piece, we're going to do our piece. So, and by the way, because I have a consultant on, obviously, in my regular job, and a professor, is one way that for-profit organizations in the music industry can think about partnerships is through a corporate social responsibility lens. So they're making a social impact by investing in you, right? Because you're changing the landscape of the music industry. So I'm just putting that seed out there to whoever's
That's
listening.
good to know.
Okay, so tap into those. They're really good. Okay, next question. If you, and this for you is going to be really interesting. If you were to think of a song that describes Girls Are Loud, what would it be? And you can use a Cher song if you want to, since you've memorized them all.
Probably It's a Man's World. Not to be too on the nose, but it's a very good song. And I think it really describes what we're doing and sort of that interdependence that we need to have in the industry.
What makes Girls Are Loud gutsy? Because you're definitely gutsy.
I'd say changing status quo at the very basic level. We, aren't taking things on the face at all. I think what we're doing, it's definitely hard at times because there isn't a template, but there's no other women in music organization that is taking a directory and organizing things with that. And so even within our own realm, we're trying to start a new way of doing things.
And you're doing it. So what is something that outsiders or maybe even insiders don't know about Girls Are Loud?
That most of our roster is bolstered by people that recommend other people. That it really is like the testimonials of the people that we've worked with that have built the foundation of this organization. I think that that's been huge for how we've grown and how we've adapted through time. And so we owe a lot to the people that we've worked with in the past.
And I think it speaks to the professionalism of your team that you pull together and the female artists that you bring into the space in the room. The fact that they'll tell somebody else, this was a fabulous experience, high quality, and you need to try them. So this last question is going to be a little hard, I think, because there are probably so many. But if you could get one celebrity or influencer to endorse or talk about Girls Are Loud, who would it be?
I have thought of this one before, and there's a rotating list of artists that I'd love to do a session with. I feel like Dolly Parton would be the coolest one, though.
Oh, I love her. Okay, Dolly, if you're listening, we're going to hashtag you on this. Get into Girls Out. She'd be fabulous.
Yes, she already is such a philanthropist. She was in 9 to 5. Like, she's such an icon for this.
She's an icon for sure, and she's done so much in terms of her own social impact, and she believes in women empowerment. So I couldn't agree with you more. What a great choice.
Fingers crossed we can get her.
Let's put it out there into the podcast world. We'll try. Any other last comments or thoughts that you want to share with us? You've been a delight to speak with.
Thank you. You as well. I'd say Girls Are Loud is growing. We are starting to figure out how to become scalable, and we just want to work with more artists. So anybody that's interested, we always want to hear from them and are very open to collaborations and figuring out how to get more women in the room. And yeah, I'm so excited to be part of this community and to learn more about women in music that are trying to make it and help them on their journey. So feel free to reach out, I guess.
Yeah, that was my next question. So how do people find you? What's the best way to find you?
Probably our website. It's girlsareloud.com. And there is a contact page, and you can say what you're interested in or why you want to reach out, and that email gets directed to our team.
That's great. So folks who are either artists or interested in being part of the team or already have recorded can still reach out, and you'll get a team together and work with them, and you'll be able to meet with them.
Definitely.
So I am going to open it up because my sound engineer, who's an engineer, he's male, but I think I want his voice in this discussion. Do you have any questions I haven't asked or anything you want to say, Pavel?
I suppose I just want to say that this is really, really cool. And, just even thinking about the studio environment, when I'm just like picturing in my head, it's such a boys club, and, we're all adults. You can't just say like, no girls in the clubhouse. We're missing out on so much awesome music that could be made. Basically half of all people are women.
I wanted your voice because of also what you just said, Pavel, which is, it's not like, okay, it's a clubhouse and you can't come in. But in a way, there's been a door that hasn't allowed females to really feel welcome. And so I think Leila Kumble is changing that with Girls Are Loud, and anything we can do to support and change that. And so I wanted, because this isn't my field, you really just acknowledged what exists in the field that Leila was talking about. And I agree with you. It leaves out half the population, which means half the diversity, half the artistry, half the sentimentality that comes from a different gender.
Absolutely. And I think, it's just one of those many industries where we've got to keep looking at everything and figure out how much like entrenched inequality and stuff there is. I mean, just even like the language of like sound guy, that's not the worst thing in the world, but at the same time, like that's the default in your brain,
Which is why I think Girls Are Loud is so important and so significant to promote, support, get the word out. So I really want to thank Girls Are Loud and Leila Kumble for talking with me today and sharing your vision and truly your authentic voice, which you bring to the music industry. And I truly hope it's a seed that you've planted that grows into an enormous tree.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
It was such a pleasure getting to know you and learning about Girls Are Loud and what you're doing.
Thanks so much for having me.
Our blog of these small and gutsy nonprofits and small social impact organizations can be found in the organizational stories section of the Intrinsic Group website, so that we can continue to link clients, volunteers, future employees, and donors to this small but mighty network. Of course, we can't take responsibility outside of our own vetting of the organizations we interviewed, so before you sign on to support or work for them, we encourage you to do your own due diligence and research them as well. We just want you to learn about the small and gutsy nonprofit and social impact organizational sector so they can spread their story and their very impactful work. I want to thank my partners in this endeavor, the Intrinsic Group, a management consulting firm specializing in guiding organizations to leverage talent and optimize processes, the volunteers, my co-producer, sound engineer and composer, Pavel Franson, and my graphic designer, Nate Addy. Please check out their bios on the Intrinsic website and all the folks, friends, and family who have guided and inspired me. And thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends. Give us some stars and write a review on wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're interested in sponsoring Small and Gutsy to keep it going, please reach out to me at reachus@theintrinsicgroup.com. So here's a shout out from Brian Watt. Informative and necessary. Great way to learn about some awesome nonprofits out there in a world that sometimes seems like only bad happens. Hearing about the great and innovative work of these nonprofits is inspiring. Just the thing needed to keep the soul fresh. Thanks, Brian. We appreciate your listening and we appreciate you. So remember, everybody, give us stars, write a review, and also name an organization you'd like us to shout out on Small and Gutsy. So remember again, from Small and Gutsy to Big with Impact. I'm Laura, and thanks for listening. Until next time, bye for now.